Welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst movies of all time and talk about them. My name is Ben Errington, and today's episode is a bonus episode, a very special bonus episode, chatting all about one of the films that premiered at FrightFest last month. Today I'm joined by a very, very special guest. It's Nicholas Vince, actor-director Nicholas Vince, one of the UK's shining beacons in the queer horror scene, most well known for his debut role as the Chatterer in Clive Barker's Hellraiser and Kinski in Cult Shock and Nightbreed. Welcome to the show, Nicholas. Hello.
Hello, Ben.
Hello.
That's a lovely introduction. Thank you. I like that.
No problem. You deserve it. You deserve a great introduction. Of course you do.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking the time to talk to us, because we didn't manage to speak to you at FrightFest because you're a man in demand, of course.
It was wonderful. It was really, really, really good fun. And it was just like, oh gosh, all these people want to talk to me about my film, and well, two films. Because I, as well as doing Monsters, I Am Monsters on the Monday, I have a great cameo in How to Kill Monsters.
Exclusively films with monsters in the title, then.
Yes.
Which makes sense.
Yes.
So I managed to catch up with you very, very briefly at the event. However, we didn't manage to cross paths again, which was when we were going to hopefully get you on camera. So we've managed to catch up afterwards, which is great, which is wonderful. I'm very glad that we've managed to do this. Thanks for taking the time.
That's my pleasure.
Wonderful. So first of all, thank you for joining us, Nicholas. Congratulations on I Am Monsters and, of course, How to Kill Monsters. But before we get started, here are some details on your film, which is both a resoundingly nostalgic and relatable tale of growing up in love with horror and an essential discourse on the turmoil of growing up gay under draconian Thatcherian. I don't know if I've ever said that word out loud. I don't know why I would. Rule where the closet was always safest. I Am Monsters is a documentary adaptation of autobiographical one-man stage show. That sums it up, I think, doesn't it?
It does. Yes. I'm assuming it's written by Greg Day for FrightFest. He did a really, really good job on it.
I did. Unfortunately, I did steal that from somewhere else. I didn't.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to blow the gaff on that.
No, that's fine. We can peek under the curtain. There's no problem with that. I think everybody knows. Okay. I thought it summed it up perfectly. Anyway, anything I could have written wouldn't have come close. So. Right. So it's all good. And of course, the film premiered at FrightFest last month. So how was the event? How was the screening? And how was the film received as well?
It was one of those things. I'm very lucky. My husband makes oh god, you're going to get a lot of information now. This is what really happened, but underneath the curtain. So my wonderful husband Craig really enjoys sewing and creating clothes, and decided that he was going to make me a jacket for the premiere. I would design the material and Craig would make the jacket. And it took me ages to eventually decide on the material. We could get printed up and for this jacket. And long story short, bless him, because I'd given him so little time, having faffed around with the design for so long, he was literally finishing it off on the morning of the premiere. So it's like, as long as you're there by 10:30, I can get changed ready for 11 o'clock to be at the cinema. And he didn't make it until 10:45. So we were running around. Fortunately, I had a friend had a hotel room nearby so that I could get changed into my outfit ready for it. It was great. I mean, seeing it with an audience the first time, I mean, I'd watched it technically with a few people and got some really positive feedback, but actually just literally sitting with an audience of 70 odd people, and we were packed, it was absolutely full, just laughing at all. There was one gag that didn't land, and I know why, so I might change it for the Blu-ray.
Well, it's good you could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was fun. People laughed when I wanted them to. They went when I wanted them to, and kind of planned them to, and they were silent for the bits where I thought, oh yes, this is where we're talking about, and I just really want people to think about this. The feedback was great. I ended up by hugging most members of the audience on their way out, just because I happened to be standing by the door. It's like ages to everybody. In fact, we had to be hurried out because I kept
You're getting a hug on the way out.
Okay,
Come on,
another hug.
bring it in.
People were telling me people were really telling me how much they enjoyed it. I was chatting with friends afterwards, one of whom's a professor at a university, I think Cambridge off the top of my head, but don't quote me. And she was saying, she really liked the philosophy going on, but also that I don't answer all the questions that I pose. Yeah, I mean, this is my story. But I really just wanted to say, this is what it was like. Now you think about what that means to you. This is my experience. I'm not telling you how you should react, apart from when I crack a joke. It's always nice if people laugh at jokes. But yeah, it was great. And the reviews have been very positive. We've got 3.5 on 4-star reviews. So I was very pleased with that. It's very different, and it's not a feature film. It's me talking for 70 minutes telling stories, and it's not what you expect. I think one of the reviewers says, I don't know how to give this a star rating because it's so different from anything else. We describe it as a documentary because it's factual. It does include clips from the films, where I'm telling the stories about what's going on behind it. But it's also a meditation on what it is to be a monster and why I felt myself to be a monster in the past. And people have accused me of being a monster, and I've behaved as a monster. So yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I had a great day.
I mean, I couldn't actually even get a ticket because it's sold that fast. I had probably like free. So I absolutely love documentaries or anything along those lines. I know this isn't a standard documentary because there aren't any really like talking heads, or there's not really input from anybody else talking. Say again, sorry.
Talking head.
One talking head.
It's my talking head. Yeah,
it's your talking head. Exactly. So it's a very like unconventional documentary, isn't it? And there was like maybe free initially when I was booking the tickets for discovery screenings in FrightFest. I was like, right, okay, these are maybe the 3 things I need, and they were all like documentary or kind of documentaries.
Oh right.
And yeah, and you're sold out, so it must have sold out super quick.
It did, yeah, definitely. And we sold out at there was always 2 parts to the selling out of this. There's the FrightFest pass holder tickets. It's a limited number of those. Those went really, really quickly, and a lot of mates who I knew wanted to come and see weren't able to make it. And then there were the paid seats as well. So we sold, there's basically a couple of rows of passes, and the rest are all paid seats, apart from the ones, the 6 that I got given. So we had, I mean, people actually paid money to come and see it as well, which I thought was really very, very cool. No, it was, as I say, it was literally a sellout, which is,
really
great.
Which is wonderful. How did the jacket go down there?
It was very good. It's very good. It's very subtle. You have to, it's what is known as a chalk stripe jacket, a design. And if you get really close to it, you can see that it's made up of a long chain, and then the 3 covers, the 3 sides of the box from Hellraiser. And then I always do a doodle of the Chatterer whenever I sign my signature. And it's tiny. I mean, these things are like 3-4 minutes. So you have to be really close to me to understand exactly what the pattern is. But otherwise, it just looks like a chalk stripe.
That's good, though. I like that. And a one of a kind as well.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
What collectors would pay for that? Not that you sell it, of course. Obviously, you mentioned the Chatterer, and there's loads of Chatterer memorabilia behind you. When I was writing my questions, I kind of thought I'm going to stick to I Am Monsters, not really talk about the Chatterer or Hellraiser, just because sometimes you don't know. And I thought I'd ask you this. Sometimes with your most like iconic role, your most iconic character, something that's really connected to you as an actor, and kind of like what most people you would say would know you for. Is it occasionally that some people would be like, I'm kind of sick of being defined by this particular character, or do you feel like you just fully embrace it and you just love it and love the fandom that kind of goes with it?
This is one of the reasons why I wanted to do the film, because in it I reveal why the Chatterer looks the way he does. There's a long story. In fact, about the first 20, and there's about a 20-minute section devoted to the Chatterer, as not to the makeup process, that's included, but really what was going on in my life that explains why the Chatterer looks the way he does. So I wanted to get that out there. I'm always reminded of Vincent Price, who said, "Thank heavens for typecasting," because he's, you know, he made a career out of playing tall, suave, darkly sinister characters, and really I'm just really grateful. And the reason I'm grateful is because people are talking about this 86, so 37 years after we filmed it, I'm still talking to people like yourself. I talked to people who were not born when we made this film, and you know, who really enjoy it and really appreciate it and want to know more about it. So I'm just very grateful as an actor to actually be associated with something that has stood the test of time so well. Is an incredibly fortunate thing. So yeah, I'm never, and people said, surely you're bored with answering the question, how long does it take to put the makeup on? And I thought, no, because somebody else said to me, another guest at a convention said, okay, I may have heard this hundreds of times, but for that person, that's the first time they've ever asked that question. It's the first time they've met me.
Yeah.
You know, they'll have made a great deal of effort to come and see me at a convention or a screening or something. And that is the question that they've come up with. I think that, you know, one treats that with huge respect as far as I'm concerned. So no, I'm just really
That's good.
very grateful.
I'm glad to hear that. That is great, and obviously, yeah, you do seem to have a really good collection of memorabilia behind you as well. Obviously,
yeah, actually, one of the beep, 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 beep. Where is the one we're talking about? Chatterer at the moment. Let me see. There is one here.
If you listen to the audio, I really do recommend going and watching the YouTube video as well, just so you can see this.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Sorry guys, this does not work on radio. So this, can you see? Let me put this. Yeah, there we are. You can see that nicely. So this is made out of the tin, I'm informed, of number plates. It's made out of tin. It is made by Flor Palomar, painted. And you'll see it's written in Spanish, and it says, "I'm a big fan of the Hellraiser movies, but one night while walking on a lonely street, Chatterer, one of the main characters in the movie, appeared to me. I thank Saint Michael the Archangel that although I nearly fell down, I managed to escape. I do not know if it was a product of my imagination or if it was real, but that experience scared me very much."
Oh my
And
god!
then on
Actual Chatterer came to,
and I've got another story about that as well. And this one's Nightbreed, and he says, "I dedicate this votive offering to St. James for the talented Nicholas Vince. He has portrayed so many memorable characters and acted very well, even when wearing a lot of makeup and costumes. He truly is a master of his craft." And it's just like, these are beautiful.
Yeah,
you know, these are such amazing
time and effort that must have gone into those as well.
I know, and it's like there's collections of, and you mentioned Funko Pop and so on, but a gentleman believed he saw a Chatterer. I have no reason to doubt his experience. I remember talking to a young woman at a convention who said that she persuaded her friend when they were at school, and I think they're probably about 16, 17 years old, or possibly a little younger, that the Chatterer lived in the local woods. And she said this story had then gone round the school.
No. There's a Chatterer in the local woods.
Yeah, somewhere in America there is. And
in America as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got on a flight.
I wonder, you know, does it? This was years ago. This is more than a decade ago. But I do like the idea that perhaps there's a school, there's a town where the kids believe that the Chatterer lives in the woods, and I think, yeah, that's cool. That's very, very cool. So
There's going to
yeah,
be plenty of people who are having chatter and nightmares, like probably as we speak, because I think everyone's got their the
oh
Cenobite that they're the most scared of, haven't they?
yeah, I think the lady. I remember when, God, about a year after the first film came out, I was in. Oh no, more than that, probably about 3 years, because I was writing comics, and I was out at a pub in Brixton, and one of my artist's friends there, and his girlfriend. We were there, a bunch of half a dozen of us, and his girlfriend turned up, and he just introduced me. He said, "This is Nick. He played the Chatterer in Hellraiser." She literally took one look at me and ran from the pub,
Oh my God,
and had to go out and look for her. She didn't appear for 20 minutes later.
never
And
seen the film.
whenever I met her, afterwards, didn't matter
Yeah,
how nice I was and how smiley and friendly. Nope, I was the Chatterer, and she
maybe the more smiley you were, the
yeah.
worse, the worse it was for her. Oh
Yeah,
God, no.
yeah. Come to think of it, yeah, that was probably a bad move. Yeah.
I remember. So I've told this story a couple of times. It's like I've got loads of really early horror memories, but one of them is just the VHS of Hellraiser just being on a shelf that obviously my dad owned, and like I just had no idea. Like obviously I knew some stuff about horror, but this felt like the next level for me. I remember looking at the sleeve, looking at the pictures on the back, and just not being able to comprehend like what it could possibly be.
Mm,
And eventually, when I did watch it, which was actually when I was quite a lot older, it wasn't like I saw it really young and it really affected me. I purposely waited because I kind of was so um unsure of what could
mm.
potentially be in there. And I remember saying to my dad, like, "Oh, what is this? Should I watch it?" He's like, "Oh, it's terrifying. You don't want to see it." And I believed him. Like usually I'd be like my mum did the same with The Exorcist, and I purposely sought it out because I thought I've got to see that. But with Hellraiser, I was like, maybe I'll wait a while.
Really fascinating. I was talking, funnily enough, I was out with Barbie Wilde, who played female Cenobite in Hellraiser 2, Simon Bamford, who plays Butterball in both Hellraiser films, and Onaka in Nightbreed. And I was out with Hugh Ross, who plays Narcisse in Nightbreed, and Anne Bobby, who plays Laurie in Nightbreed.
Wow.
Anne was across for a few days, and we all met up for dinner. And Barbie we were talking about this, the number of times you go to conventions, you think, you were how old when you watched this film? What were your
Yeah.
parents thinking? And he's like, I think, well, a lot of them, the people I meet seem to be fairly balanced, they seem to be okay. And what also came up in this conversation is that genuinely, we love horror fans because they're the nicest people.
Mm.
They are so cool. I think, horror fans really, and I think this, again, going back to I Am Monsters, this is what a couple of people have said to me. Yeah, really, because I talk about really being the other, being different, being the outsider. A lot of people identify with that. So yeah.
I guess a lot of people in the horror community identify with that as well.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, horror fans usually cool, usually very interesting, and
mm,
usually like really not judgmental at all. I feel like in the horror sphere, everybody seems to be mostly, I say mostly, level-headed. Like horror fans get a certain stick from like a lot of people who would say like, "Oh, you watch all you watch is horror films. You go to horror conventions. Well, you must be maybe a little bit sick in the head." But I think like most horror fans are probably the most normal people I've ever met.
Well, I always come back to something that happened during the pandemic. Was that there was a study done by a university in New York during so I'm thinking 2020, and they were saying people who read and watch horror films were doing better than other people. And I think it's because you exercise the fear muscles, if there isn't a muscle,
Yeah.
but you exercise what it is to be afraid. You deal with what it
Mm.
is to be afraid. And I think that's an important, going back to kids again, I think kids are interested, it's why the Goosebump books are so popular, is because kids like being scared. It's
Mm.
fun. They find it exciting. They like that adrenaline rush. And being able to deal with that emotion so that you're not when you're scared, you're flight or fright, you're going to be in a possibly, we're talking about not being watching a horror film, but in real life, another situation, you're not going to panic, or you are less likely to panic. You can deal with that fear. You can use that adrenaline to help you get out of a situation.
It's almost like it's front and center. You're so familiar with it. It's front and center. You can easily draw upon it. Whereas people who maybe not so much, it's not such an easy method for them to reach those places. I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this stuff is sort of a thematic idea in the film as well. I mean, so going back to I Am Monsters, it's an adaptation of the one-man stage show. So how was translating that show into a documentary? What was challenging about that?
Well, I mean, basically, we could have stuck cameras on me whilst I was doing a live performance, and it does include a live performance. We had a small audience came to join me as part of the film. We filmed over 5 days. The challenge was to make sure, well, if you just put a camera in the audience and show the whole stage, that means you're going to not be able to show mid shots and close-ups. And that means I think you lose a lot of the connectivity to the audience sitting in the cinema. So I was very conscious about this. And the other thing is it involves 2 sequences. Well, there are 3 illustrative pieces of animation, which goes back to that 20-minute description of how the Jatra came to be. But there's a part of the original stage show, and part of the film is me performing parts of the text of books that really influenced me as a teenager, as a kid or a teenager. And I wanted to include those because partly to give a break, but also, I mean, partly to give a break, but also just to kind of help people understand what my thinking was and why I behaved in certain ways. And so the challenge always was, how do I keep this interesting? Because otherwise it could just be me being the single talking head for 72 minutes is a tough call. It's easier to do it on stage. I think people understand if you're going to see a one-man show, that's it. You're just going to see a one-man show when you're not expecting huge, great things to happen. And it worked very well. It works as I'm not saying that I'll never perform it again. It works as a one-man show. So I just wanted to, so there's an animation done by a guy called Ashley Lawrence, which illustrates an excerpt from Dracula. I did some, but there is what Kim Newman described in his review as a hilarious Trumpton-esque animation sequence, for those of you who are old enough in the UK to remember Trampton and Canberwick Green, where we basically got models to show a sequence. It's a very short sequence. I think it's about 1.5 minutes in total. But it's just like, that's where some of the laughs come as well. And it's just, but also the fun of kind of like saying, okay, now you're not on the stage. Now you're kind of come really close to me. Because this I'm talking about is very intimate, it's very personal, and quite difficult subject. So when we were doing, and I was hugely helped by Stuart Spark, who happens to be the director of How to Kill.
Wow, yeah, okay.
So Stuart and Paul Butler, who's part of Dark Rift, who are Dark Rift films, they're my co-producers, and they really helped on this. So this was one of the things that we just said, okay, how can we make this? They were really supportive, really enthusiastic. Yeah, we can do this. We can do something that's interesting.
So did that happen off the back of? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there, Nicholas. Did that come back off the back of How to Kill Monsters? Then was that something that was?
No, it came off the back of another Monsters film, which is Book of Monsters.
Book of Monsters, yeah.
Which came out of Creature Below, which was one of their earlier films, which they screened. So basically, it all began years ago when friendship with Paul and Stuart began when they came on Chattering with Nicholas Vince, a YouTube channel which I used to run, interview channel which I used to run.
And it's a great name for the YouTube channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Chattering has to be in there somewhere. And then I'm really impressed. I really loved working for them. And then they said, "Oh, would you like to be involved in How to Kill Monsters?" Sorry, Book of Monsters. And I said, "Yeah, great." And had really good fun on that one then. And then when I thought, okay, who do I want to work with? I need to really work with two people. The other person, company I was thinking of working with, were based up in Scotland. And Stuart and Paul are based Leeds, York way. And I just thought, yeah, they're closer. I just really enjoyed working with them. As I say, they really helped, shape the script. The idea of putting in, it starts on saying, this is a play in 5 acts. Because it is a play, because it's just me talking. There aren't any special effects. There are no recreations of what's going on. Well, there's a couple where it kind of recreate. Yeah, no, there are. Actually, no, we did manage to. Just having said that, of course, I realize that now there are at least 2 where we're kind of recreating what happened to tell the story in different ways. I think
the storytelling methods are very unique. Like, so very, very creative. Obviously, a few times when there's more than one of you on screen, not on stage, of course, that would be pretty much impossible, but just on the screen, which was great. I really like that. It reminded me of that bit in Jurassic Park when Richard Attenborough appears on screen. There's like 3 different versions of him talking through the DNA, the dino DNA. I thought it was very reminiscent of that, but also obviously we've already mentioned you perform in very iconic roles from very iconic scenes. Was that almost like you were taking some of your like dream roles in a way and and sort of giving yourself the opportunity to at least perform one scene in the film? Obviously, like Dr. Moreau and remind me of the other. Sorry.
So there's Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, that's right.
There is Eric, the Phantom of the Opera.
That's right. Oh yeah, that's right. I was good. That's another one I had written down. Yeah.
Isn't it dreadful? I can't remember the name of the guy. Dracula is obviously it's written is what is known as an epistolary novel, i.e. it's based on letters, epistles.
Yeah, of course.
Jonathan Harker. I'd get there eventually.
Oh, Johnny Harker.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, but I thought I've got that wrong as well.
Yeah. Keanu Reeves wasn't available, so it's me.
Oh, it's better than Keanu Reeves, and I love Keanu Reeves, but his Jonathan Harker performance, a bit iffy. Sorry, Keanu. You're great.
It's still a wonderful film as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And Keanu Reeves as a human being seems to be a really, really nice guy. So
so you're doing a Keanu Reeves, you're doing a Marlon Brando. I know that's maybe not the version.
Of course, Charles, the actor from the black and white version of Dr.
Maybe, yeah, it's more likely that version. We don't want to talk about the Val Kilmer version.
No, bless him.
I feel like I'm just slating amazing actors that I love and respect. I don't mean that in any way. Just the films weren't as well received.
I think the documentary about the making of Val Kilmer's The Island of Dr. Moreau, from all I've understood, and having watched a bit of the documentary, is possibly more interesting than the film of Dr. Moreau. I don't know. It's certainly a fascinating documentary and really useful for filmmakers to watch if you really want to understand what happens in filmmaking and producers and so on. Yes, it is. It's perhaps a little self-indulgent. I don't care. It's what I wanted to do. I want to have fun with this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think self-indulge away. It's a documentary about you. You know, it's about you. It's a one-man show. It's a documentary about you. If you're not going to self-indulge, then when are you?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's just face it, there is you can't really escape. This is a huge act of ego to actually do this. And it's fine. I was talking to one of the a couple of a director at FrightFest, not this year, but the year before, when we just filmed we spent 5 days filming everything in the studios in August last year, shortly before FrightFest last year. And I was talking to one of the directors who had a film at FrightFest, and he was saying, so he said, so how personal are you getting? I said, well, I don't want it to be like a session with a psychiatrist. He said, why not? Why not reveal all this stuff? And I'm like, well, okay, because it's scary. I'm laying bare some really quite deeply personal stuff. Will people like me after I film?
Oh no.
Yeah, I was thinking about the story. There is no aspect of this film that I'm not in some sense responsible for. I cannot say a big boy did it and ran away. I wrote it, I performed it, I directed it, as I say, with huge support. I edited it as well.
Oh, wow.
In fact, I've spent the last year leading up to FrightFest looking at myself on screen and watching myself perform. I do not recommend this as being potentially a sensible thing for people to do. But I couldn't afford an editor, so it was going to be down to me. So it's like, yeah, okay, that's what this is going to be about. But I think hopefully I've grown during the process. And it's kind of given me a lot more confidence in things as well. I did some filming for Hex Media up in Scotland recently, in fact, a couple of months ago. And they gave me a page script a couple of days before filming, so you're okay to do that. And I nailed it. I got it in one take. And I think it is because of the fact that it's kind of like, okay, I can actually do this.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, I think for actors, it's very strange for actors because, of course, when I was at drama school, you didn't film yourself. I was at drama school in the 1980s. We didn't have phones. We didn't video. You didn't actually get to see yourself as part of training. It was all stage. It was referred to as stage school because it was all theatre performances. So all your reactions were from your teachers and from the audience. And which is why I was saying somebody asked me recently, is it harder to do the film or to do stage? I said, it's actually easier to do stage because you're communicating with the audience and you can adjust your performance. Sitting in the cinema for that first time watching that was amazing. And I'm so grateful because there were a whole load of mates in there. So they were really supporting me. They were very generous with their laughter. So it was a good experience but leading up to it was terrifying. But I think
the fact that you're involved in so many areas of the film as well kind of did make me think, did you feel that pressure, that extra pressure? Like if you just got a role in a movie, obviously all the pressure's off, I guess. But when you've directed it, you've edited it, and it's literally of extremely personal story to you as well. Like, was there more pressure? Was there more anxiety going into it as well?
Yeah, I mean, completely unlike anything else I've ever done. I'm hoping that it's going to be interesting. It was interesting watching because, of course, we did How to Kill Monsters on the Friday. That was a huge experience. In fact, I laughed so much during How to Kill Monsters that I lost my voice. But it was really not, and it's me on in my cameo in the parts that I'm in. It's me on a big screen, and it's like, oh, this actually works. because I remember the filming, you know, when you do the filming, you think, oh God, is this going to work? This is, because it's very much casting against type. In fact, deliberately, Paul and Stuart said, yeah, you're such a nice guy, Nick. We want you to play something completely different.
I know this film's called How to Kill Monsters, but we don't want you to be a monster.
No.
What?
Wasn't it? Yeah. I kind of stay playing a monster. Is he a monster? And I thought that it's like, yeah, playing all those different things. I thought, oh, this works. This has worked really, really well. It's very difficult for an actor when you're doing film because you do have so little control over it. As an actor, if you are just playing a part, you know, you do your best on stage, you remember your lines, don't trip over the furniture. And then it's out of your control. You can be cut, you can be edited, you know, the whole way it is put together, your timing is actually your timing as a performer is in the hands of the editor. It's yours as well within your speech, but the way it's cut and so on, that's down to the editor, and that can have a huge impact on the way the performance is perceived. When you're doing film, it's a lot out of your control. I mean, the flip side of doing I Am Monsters was like, it was all in my control. It was all good. But at least I was able to say, okay, yeah, this bit works better. This is the best scene. You know, this is the best shot that we got. But yeah, so it was a lot of I mean, the filming of it, we filmed over 5 days. And we started at 7 o'clock in the morning on those days and worked through till 6 o'clock each day. I think we called it a day at about 3:30 on the Friday, because by then I was exhausted. It's just like, I can't do any more. This is enough now. I have nothing else to give, because it's really, it is nothing but me. And it's not like, normally when you're acting on stage, it's obviously very rare to do a monologue, and it's very rare to do a monologue directed to the audience. Normally, if you're in normal filming, you're playing with another actor. I love that word, playing. You're having a game with the other actor. You're kind of bouncing backwards and forwards, and that's always the fun of it. And oh yeah, you did that. Oh, that means my character would do this. Oh, this is fun. Let's try this. Let's do this again. So yeah, a lot of pressure. I am so pleased it's done. And after the reaction at FrightFest, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing it in other audiences. They're about, I think they've just announced that it's screening in Belgium. That's going to be interesting, because that's going to be watching it with an audience who are taught English, but who Flemish is their first language. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the reaction there. I'm still not sure if the next one's actually been announced or not, but it should be announced in the next few days. There's another screening happening in London, but that's going to be part of a academic event as well as a film festival.
I mean, that was the next question I was going to say. I mean, after the premiere at FrightFest, where will people be able to watch the film? Is it going to be available streaming online somewhere eventually?
Eventually, yeah, we're definitely going to be doing a Blu-ray, which is now the timing of which we may be delaying until the new year. I'd had hoped to get it out by the end of this year, but we're now, as a result of other conversations. So yeah, I'm just waiting. And also it's with a couple of distributors to see what they think about it, though I suspect it'll probably just it will definitely be available on Blu-ray, either by the end of this year or early next year, and then hopefully, and then the plan one way or another is, yes, it will be available streaming.
Amazing. Wonderful. I mean, the last thing I was going to ask was obviously there's a theme that runs through the documentary, exploring your sexuality, and then the duality of hiding behind a mask in various movie roles, and how both of those things kind of compare to each other. But what would you like audiences to take away from I Am Monsters?
I think we're all monsters. I think, that is the final message of the film, is that we are all, in inverted commas, monsters. And I think that's very much part of being human. that we, listen, being human, as far as I understand it, after 65 years knocking around this planet, is very much a fight between darkness and light, good and evil, however you want to put it. And Buddhists describe it as greed, anger, and stupidity versus courage, wisdom, and compassion. I've always liked that. And I think that's what it is to be human. And sometimes we get tired, we get bad-tempered, we get, and there are people who suffer terrible abuse as children who sadly tend to go on to become abusers themselves. And there are drugs, and there are all other sorts of things. So what let's treat people with a little bit of compassion, respect, listen to the stories. I think that's really important as well, listening to other people's stories.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd hope people would take away from this.
There are plenty of amazing stories within the documentary to listen to as well. I mean, you are a great storyteller. Even during this podcast, I found myself kind of leaning in, feeling at ease, just listening to the stories, which is always good. Which is always good, because most of the time I'm like, when's it my time to talk? But I'm joking, of course. I'm not like that. As a podcast host, what? Me?
Yeah,
No, of course not.
Yeah, I know. I've been on your side of the camera. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, so are you working on anything currently or next, or is it all of the post I Am Monsters stuff? This sort of on your radar?
I have so much I'm supposed to be doing. There are 2 outlines for screenplays. There's the 3rd volume of short stories. There is a novella, which I'm working on, and I've been started plotting and so on. So every time I wake up in the morning, it's just like, oh God, what's the most pressing, urgent thing that I have to get done today? All these things that are crowding my mind. What do I have to do today? So yes, I think 3rd volume of short stories I'm really aiming for the end of October. I'll be self-publishing, if not then beginning middle of November, but I'm really want to push myself. Having said that, I've just lost a week and a half to a stinking cold, and it's just wiped me out. But there again, it has been a really kind of tough year and a half. So I'm going to be, so yeah, lots of writing. And literally something dropped in my inbox day before yesterday, which looks like a really interesting acting project. So I'm really hoping that comes to be, because it's I've just started reading the script before we started talking.
You've been extremely creative on lots of different media. It's good to hear. Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicholas. It's been an absolute pleasure. Great that we finally managed to catch up with you.
Thank you, Ben.
So thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to Taj Easton for our theme music, and thanks to Acast for hosting the show. Please give us a rating or review. Head over to our Facebook group for more. Thanks again, Nicholas. Take care and see you soon.
Thank you. You too, Ben.